This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, we'll get started. First of all, thank you everyone to join this session. Being a weekend, uh, good to see that you have attending this weekend session. So thank you all. This is Satish. So we have this kind of a webinar. Wanted to spend some time on probably publishing what we see in the market, right? What are the trends that are that we forecast from a performance testing and engineering? That is what we wanted to probably share those information with you. Of course, when it comes to performance testing and engineering, it has a varied range of tools, technologies, and it has various parameters that influences this area. But when it comes to real working experience, what we do on the ground from that perspective, we wanted to probably share what we are seeing today in the market. What is it customers are expecting? What is the project teams are expecting? The kind of role we used to do earlier, the kind of role that is expected in the near future. That is what we wanted to share it as part of this today's session. There might be a lot of other things as well you might see in other places, uh, but in general, what we see in the market is what we wanted to share. It's more of a knowledge sharing session. Whatever with our experience, whatever we see in the today's market is what we wanted to share. Okay, so being a performance tester or being a performance engineer, right? I assume that most of you who have joined have definitely have some kind of experience in performance testing, and day in and day out, we might have been doing all these non-functional requirement analysis, gathering the requirements when it comes to non-functional aspects, analyzing it, and then converting that into a test plan, creating a scripts using JMeter or Gatling or LoadRunner, and doing the required executions to validate the application load, stress, endurance, and then analyzing the results during the test, after the test, and then providing the report. This is an comprehensive end-to-end performance testing. What we do in any project, irrespective of whether the application is a web or web services, mobile application, SAP, whatever technology the application belongs to, irrespective of that, the kind of work what we do an end to end is going to be a typical from non-functional requirement till we do the reporting and the sign off is what we typically do it. And depending upon your experience, depending upon your exposure, depending upon the your role in a project, you might do everything end to end, or you might just do a scripting, or you might be more focused on execution and analysis. If you are a test lead or a manager, you might be doing the just the non-functional requirement test planning, and then probably involved in some of the triage calls, reporting, providing a sign off. So depending upon your role, you might be doing various things, right? Okay, so if at all you're doing all these things, what is next, right? When we wanted to either upskill ourselves to be ready for the demand in the market, or whatever that is expected in the current job market or within your project from your customer. If at all you wanted to upskill you, if you want to make yourself ready to move to a better role, right? What is the next step, right? Or rather, what is the additional things that is market is demanding from you? From that angle, I have given five different tenants, Right. So when it comes to what next, in which area you wanted to upskill, what is that market is expecting? Uh, Number one, of course, you might have all heard about DevOps, continuous testing, continuous performance, continuous deployment, CI/CD. All these buzzwords, you might be seeing it everywhere, right? DevOps, of course, DevOps, Agile, of course, been a talk of the town for last 4 or 5 years, definitely. But it when it comes to performance testing, right? What really that is required for our performance testers to learn, because there are n number of items in DevOps, be it tools or technologies or automation. There are a lot of things there in DevOps, but obviously when it comes to performance testing, it's not something really you need to learn everything what is there in DevOps. You're not going to be a DevOps engineer. You're going to adopt DevOps for performance. So that is something we will look into it. What is that we see as a scope for our learning in DevOps for performance testing? We'll see. Second thing, cloud, of course. We have seen this last over the years with AWS, Azure, GCP, all these major cloud providers in the market. They provide infra on demand. They invite people to move their application from the data center to their cloud, which means there are a lot of applications that are getting migrated to the cloud. So which means as a performance tester, you may need to definitely upskill ourselves in these cloud technologies, how to test the cloud applications, cloud monitoring tools. So we'll look into what are the various aspects you might need to upskill from a cloud perspective. So cloud and DevOps, yes, for sure. We are going to get master in these things because it's very dynamic. It keeps changing every 6 months. You talk about Azure, you talk about Kubernetes, you talk about Dockers, you talk about CloudWatch. Uh, there is no one single thing which is getting stabilized. It's all dynamic, which means it no need for us to go and master something as of today, but definitely we should at least understand all these key components, and then whenever there is a requirement, we should be able to go and grab it. That is far you should go and learn these things. But we, as a performance tester, we are not going to master any of these things because it's going to change. After 6 months, you will see different thing. If you go to a different project, they might use a different cloud services. If you move to another company, they might use Azure. So the important thing is, we should try to understand the basics how this cloud thing works, and then we can go and work whichever the team is using it. So the cloud and DevOps are the two important things where the market is. It is already there. It's not new. 2 to 3 years, 4 years, it's there. But from a performance testing perspective, it's still more important for us to um, uh, uh, start looking into these areas where the your job market is going to be, or even within your current organization, you will be forced to work on these areas very shortly. Third is kind of site reliability engineering. We will look into it. It's more of a separate role so far, driven by the production ops team, production monitoring team, but it is slowly getting merged into one single role where a performance tester or a performance engineer should also be doing these SRE kind of a role. We will just look into it. What is that? And then the bottom two things are kind of your SDET and full stack testing. That is another role, I would say. So cloud and DevOps is something, a technology or the way of doing certain things, right? So those two things are going to be mandatory for us to learn the basics for sure, at least. And then other three things are more of a role, right? Depending upon your aspiration, depending upon your level of comfortness in learning it, you can expand your knowledge on these three areas. All three things are kind of a role. SRE is a role, SDET is a role, full stack tester is a role. If you are good in development, or if you have known some of the programming languages, you already started working with the agile teams, with the developers, if you know a couple of good programming language, SDET could be a very good thing. But of course, SDET is something, as I said, you would need some kind of a development knowledge. A development knowledge plus performance is definitely going to be a very good combination in the market. So SDET is all about that. And full stack testing is going to be is kind of a mixed skill set. A person, especially in the a POPs team or agile team, where single person has to do multiple things. You do performance testing, functional testing, automation testing, security testing, mixture of all the testing, full stack testing people call about, right? You can be expert in one, but you should also know other things. That is what expected in certain places. I would say not everywhere, but definitely people are expecting that to do it in many of the organization. So a mixed skill set, or also they call it as a T-shaped skill set kind of a thing. So SDET and full stack testing is also something role which you might need to upskill yourself to be ready for the whatever market is expecting it. Okay, so first two things are more from a technology driven perspective, cloud and DevOps, mandatory for you to get into it. Even if your project is not there, you should try to probably learn something, learn the concepts, learn the tools, and be ready for that. Other three things are kind of a role which you should be able to know what it is, and then upskill yourself slowly towards any of the role whichever you feel comfortable. Okay, so let's see one by one. Right, let's talk about site reliability engineering. This is something not new for performance testers or for the performance engineers. It's kind of a already you might be doing it without even you know that it is part of an SRE role. So there is no single definition of, yeah, this is what SRE, because again these terms are all being coined by your Microsoft or Netflix or your Apple. All these people, they coin these words. So tomorrow, after 6 months, somebody might say somebody totally different definition. But in general, it's more about reliability, extension of performance, how reliable your application is, how fast your application can recover from a disaster, right? So you might have heard about disaster recovery or failure testing, a lot of things, word you might have heard about earlier. It's the same thing, right? Kind of an extension. They have grouped everything and they've coined something called site reliability engineering. You might go and search this word in any of your job portals. You might get a set of job description for this. Okay, so within that, right, it's all about production. It's all about how ready your application is for your production. So when it comes to site reliability, it's combination of your synthetic monitoring, your real user monitoring, your server monitoring and diagnostics, resiliency. Putting it together, everything is a role of a site reliability engineer. A site reliability engineer should be able to analyze the production problems. You should be able to mitigate the performance problem. You should be able to foresee what kind of problems you might encounter in the production. So resiliency is more about creating these kind of unknown scenarios. See, as a performance tester, we go and do a testing, load testing, endurance testing, stress testing, and then see CPU, memory, if everything is good or not, response time is good or not. If everything is good, we go and say we are ready. But when it comes to resiliency, it is more about asking question: what happens if memory goes beyond 80%? What happens if a network goes down? What happens if a server crashes? What happens if a particular server downstream services latency becomes very high? It is more about asking questions on when something happens, when some chaos happens, how application is going to react, how fast your application is going to recover. So those are all things is going to be part of your resiliency, which an SRE should be able to foresee, understand the architecture, understand what kind of a problem that can come in the production, and create those kind of scenarios. So we normally do this load testing, stress testing, endurance testing, and then we certify it. But the resilience is more about creating the failover conditions and then testing your application, and then see how fast your application is going to recover. So all these things are going to be part of your site reliability. Synthetic monitoring, measuring your availability in production over the time. If your application is available 24/7, even before your actual user can report saying application is slow, or your application is not working, somebody before even somebody goes and complains, or somebody goes and writes a Twitter feed, or sends a message to their customer care, right? Synthetic monitoring is more about, we run these artificial scripts, being a JMeter or a Selenium kind of a scripts, that will be run in production every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes. It will go and eat your server, ping your server, eat your web pages, eat your critical flows. And if something is wrong, if your response time is high, or your application is not working, it is going to send you the alerts. So creating the synthetic scripts, sending these alerts, setting up these alerts, all these things are going to be part of a SRE's job, right? And similarly, real user monitoring, monitoring your application from a real traffic. What is the application users, end users behavior, from where they are connecting, and what location they are connecting from, which mobile device they are using it, which desktop they are using it, what kind of network condition they are using it, how your application is behaving for a different user from US or India, using a different device. So analyzing all real user behavior, right? So all these things are going to be part of your SRE. But as a performance tester or as a performance engineer, you might be already doing it. We do it in the name of a performance engineer itself. We do it, right? We have seen it in many companies. Even I have done it, right? Under the name of performance engineer itself, we do this end user experience, client side performance. We do the synthetic monitoring. We do the real user monitoring. We do the server and app monitoring using AppDynamics or Dynatrace. And resiliency as well. We create all these disaster recovery scenarios. We work with the server ops teams. We bring down the server. We introduce latencies. So all these things we do it without even knowing that this is a role called SRE. That is something people coined, and they have grouped these activities under the name of SRE. So which means, if you wanted to be a real, if you want to take up a job for an SRE in the current market, you can upskill yourself in all these areas. This is just an extension of what you're doing it already. It is not an entirely new programming language or new skill set that you're going to pick it. It is more about extending yourself, knowing, okay, these are the areas and these are the things are asked under the SRE role. So which means all these things are something you can easily pick it up from a skill set perspective. It's not a big learning curve. Just that you need to look into certain aspects of these things. Maybe within your project itself, if you have a Dynatrace or AppDynamics or New Relic, right? You can probably look into synthetic monitoring, real user monitoring, and server app monitoring. All these things are part of every other APM tools. And resiliency, it's resiliency is something a different thing. It's more of a scenario based, creating chaos condition. There are tools available. You might have heard about Chaos Monkey, Gremlin. There are a lot of open source tools also available, and even your Azure, AWS, they also have their own resiliency tools to create these chaos. Okay, so yep. So SRE is something I would say, if at all you are a performance tester or a performance engineer, compared to the other skill set like SDET or full stack tester, this is something easily I think you would be able to pick it as part of your if at all you wanted to upskill you to the next level. Next is something definitely interesting one. For sure, this is going to have a much more impact when it comes to agile, when it comes to working within POTS team, right? Multi-skilled person is what people are demanding. And the way the market trend, whatever we are seeing it, right? Automation tester. If you look into a different testers in the QA teams, you have manual tester, you have automation tester, performance engineer, security testing. So if you look into all these things, with the trend, what we're seeing is the automation tester, since he knows programming language, because for being automation tester, if you wanted to know Selenium, if you wanted to write Selenium automation scripts, you have to know Java, right? Unlike load runner or JMeter, where we really don't need to know the programming language. But for a Selenium kind of automation framework, you should know a Java programming language, which means the automation testers now they could able to easily expand to the other areas. They could able to easily expand to the performance testing or the other security testing areas, right? Which means within a project, an automation tester can easily, not easily, but they could able to pick up the other roles comparatively compared to the performance tester. So which means other way around, if you want to be a full stack tester or a T-shaped skill set, right? People expect T-shaped skill set. A T-shaped skill set is nothing but there is a length and breadth, right? You can have a very deeper knowledge in a particular domain. A performance testing or engineering is our core, right? We know depth of knowledge. We have a depth of knowledge in performance testing and engineering, but you can also pick couple of important skill set which you might no need to go into depth, but at least a wide variety of skill set, Selenium, or security testing or usability testing, or whatever it is, right? Within being a full stack testing, it is very important to, apart from your performance testing and engineer, you can pick any of the other streams, right? API level automation, web automation, or security testing. So at least one of them, if you can pick it, I would say either automation testing or a security testing. That would be very, very good when you go to projects where you don't have multiple positions, right? Within a pod stream, you will have a 2-3 developers and one or maximum two of testers, which means within those one or two testers, they have to do everything: manual testing, automation testing, performance, security, everything, right? So that is also something you can look into it as part of the future trends. You might see there might be still other projects where you will have lot of openings, lot of opportunity being a performance tester alone. But slowly we are seeing the trend, at least 2 or 3 out of 10 projects currently, right? We are seeing this trend. People are asking for a single person to do everything. So which means maybe in the next 1 year, 2 years, slowly it might increase to 4 or 5, and you never know how the trend might go, right? I mean, definitely the core performance testing or engineering cannot be done by any other people. That is for sure, because it needs analytical skill set. It needs a person to analyze the non-functional requirements. Creating a script, probably anybody can do it, but creating a proper execution scenarios, relevant scenarios, production like scenarios, analyzing it, bottleneck identification, engineering aspect, right? I don't think other people can easily come into the space. A automation tester or a manual tester cannot come into the analysis space or performance engineering space. Yes, scripting can be done by other people because they also have a scripting knowledge in Seleniums or other automation scripting, right? So they can probably do scripting, but when it comes to creating a workload scenarios, creating a very good execution scenarios, analyzing it, profiling, bottleneck analysis, your database analysis, AWR analysis, memory leak analysis, heap dumps, thread dumps, all these things, I'm pretty sure that the other people will not be able to come into the space at all. That is something, it's our own domain. So which means, if you are a performance tester, right? The other skill set that you can pick it is, because nobody can come into that space at all. No automation tester, no manual tester, no security tester can come into that space. Performance engineering is something you can definitely pick it up as part of the next step. So either you can go into a testing alone, where you can pick automation testing or security testing, which is still not a niche one, because there are other people who knows that. But if you wanted to be really a niche, If you are just doing performance testing today, then next step would be to be a performance engineer, where all these things comes into picture: bottleneck analysis, behavior benchmarking, capacity analysis, heap dump analysis, thread dump analysis, um, monitoring strategy, your AWR analysis. All these things comes into picture when it comes to engineering. That is something you can definitely upskill you, because that is always going to be on demanded by the market wherever you go, whichever project you go, and that is cannot be invaded by other people in the testing organization. So which means you are always going to be a niche there. And yes, that um, yes, that of course, if at all you are good in programming language, if you are having a passion towards development, right? Which means you can. This combination is always going to work out, right? A developer doing a testing, a tester doing a development. You're not going to do a code development, but as a tester, you will find faults. You will go to. You won't do a testing as a black box. You will go into the code level, probably identify performance issues or security issue at the code level. You will go and change it, and then see how it is getting improved, and then recommend that to a developer. So it is more of a white box based of a testing. You go into a code level, you make those changes even if it is required, and even small requirements, change request. If once you get very comfortable with the code, with the project, right? You can also handle the other small request, enhancement request, as per the bandwidth of the other developers. So that is going to be something little different. But if at all you are good in programming languages, if you're passionate, then you can slowly start working with these kind of a pods team, where you can expand your knowledge, and your career could be absolutely being part of an SDET itself, right? Which is having a very good scope as well in the market. Okay, so three things: SRE, SDET, um, and then your full stack testing and a performance engineer. So out of these four things, right? SRE is something, as I said, it's extension of what we do already. Full stack testing, you need to probably learn your automation testing or your security testing, be part of a full stack testing. SDET is something towards development plus performance, and performance engineering is definitely a extent to a performance testing, but very niche in itself, right? Out of these four things, out of the SRE, SDET, full stack testing, and then the performance engineering, I would say definitely, I think if you are a performance tester, I think you should aim for performance engineering as well as the SRE. Those two things should be your focus, because that is a niche area. Other things are not going to be niche, because other people are going to have knowledge in those areas, but still, depending upon your career aspiration, you can move towards the engineering, or you can move towards the full stack testing. Irrespective of all these are all roles, right? What you want to do next, to upskill you. But when it comes to your technology oriented focus areas, right? Irrespective whether you wanted to learn or not, this DevOps and cloud, invariantly you have to get into the basics, because you will force to work on that, right? The other things are more of your job aspiration, career aspiration, whatever we have spoken so far. But this DevOps and cloud is something, it is there everywhere, which means you would be forced to know what it is, understand what it is, at least learn some basics, so that you will meet the minimum expectation, right? That is something, irrespective of your career aspiration, this DevOps and cloud is something you need to pick it for sure. So when it comes to DevOps, right? When it comes to DevOps, as I said in the beginning, there are a lot of things. DevOps to be a DevOps engineer, you need to do a lot of things. You need to know some automation. When I say automation, it's not Selenium. There are a lot of automation-based programming language, like you're being a Python or Ruby or Groovy, your shell scripts, shell scripting. There are a lot of things a DevOps engineer should know. He should know cloud technologies. He should know all these build tools, integration tools, a lot of things you should DevOps engineer should know. But when it comes to performance testing performance testing in DevOps, right? You are not going to be a DevOps engineer. You are going to still be a performance tester or engineer, but you should be able to know certain things that you can contribute towards the DevOps pipeline. At least basics of what is integration, how to integrate different tools. You might be seeing JMeter, you may be using Performance Center, Neoload, Dynatrace, AppDynamics. So what is continuous testing? What is continuous monitoring? How to bring in continuous testing in the pipeline? How to bring in load runner into the Jenkins pipeline, JMeter into the pipeline? What are the quality gates? How to pass or fail the job? What are the feedback mechanism? Because nobody is going to monitor the test once the job is going to run in the pipeline, right? You and me are not going to monitor the test. As soon as a build is deployed, jobs are going to get triggered. So how are we going to make sure a proper test is executed? We don't want a test to get just like that run and then give results, right? It should be a valid test. How to run a valid test? How to make sure you run set a proper pass fail criteria, sending a communication to every stakeholders. Nobody is going to look into your test. So once the test is completed, you have to send the communication back to the stakeholders. So all these things you should be able to learn from a DevOps perspective. That is what expected. Nobody is going to talk for you as a what is needed for performance tester. You should be able to tell, right? You have to tell the requirements to a DevOps engineer saying, I need this, I need that. Then a DevOps engineer can actually create some custom scripts and give it for you. But what is required, that you should be able to do it, right? That is a minimum criteria. If you can do it on your own, that is still more good. If you can take care of the integration, setting the quality gates, sending the feedbacks and all, if you can do it, that's well and good. Otherwise, at least you should be able to give your requirements to the DevOps engineers. Okay. Similarly, integrating it with your AppDynamics or Dynatrace for a continuous monitoring, right? How to get these server-side metrics in an automated way. So all these things has to be part of your minimum basics learning you have to do. And again, from an approach perspective, also you should know when to do what to do, right? Because it's not going to replace your actual performance execution. Before production release, we will run a traditional load testing, endurance testing manually from a performance center or from a JMeter. So within the sprint, within if there are 5 sprints, 6 sprints within a release, within a sprint, what you're going to do, what kind of approach you're going to follow. For every build, what is the approach you're going to follow? What kind of engineering activity has to be done within sprint? And when it comes to the release, what kind of execution we are going to do? So all these things are going to be part of your strategy or approach towards in an agile project. How to efficiently use this DevOps tool to run the automated test, to validate your application for every build, right? So all these things you should be able to learn, understand, and then make yourself ready for your whenever there is an opportunity, whenever there is an ask from a team for you to yes, we are already there in the pipeline. Development is happening automatically, functional testing is happening automatically. Now you tell me, how are you going to bring in performance testing into DevOps? What is your approach? What is your strategy? You should be able to as a lead, as a performance lead, as a manager, you should be able to provide an approach, provide a strategy, provide your thought process. As a tester, you should be able to integrate a JMeter or load runner with Jenkins, integrate Dynatrace with Jenkins, set some quality gates, make sure you get that proper jobs are scheduled. Depending upon your role, you should be able to carry out these activities. Okay, so which means within the DevOps domain, whatever that is required for performance tester, that alone we should be able to deliver. For that, you should start looking into all these areas which I was speaking about. Cloud, again, there is no boundary. There are n number of things you might be listening, hearing: Docker, Kubernetes, pods, Azure, AWS, GCP, things are very, very dynamic. There are n number of tools from CloudWatch to Azure monitoring tools, right? A lot of databases service, just not Oracle. You might be hearing, right? You might be hearing Elastic, Inflex, CouchDB. There are n number of database also now being part of the cloud services. As a service model, there are a lot of database you might come across. So still it is evolving. Still it hasn't reached the steady state at all. There are a lot of things, lot of tools, lot of technology, and at this moment, the recommendation is we are not going to master anything. We're not going to go and master these Kubernetes or Docker or these monitoring tools, but aware of what is available, why it is used. Because as you move along, you might be working in AWS today, another project in Azure. We're not going to select the technology here, because you as a performance tester or an engineer, you're not going to go out there and say, hey, I'm AWS architect, I will work only in AWS projects. Not the case, right? We are a performance tester or engineer. So for that, we're not going to choose the technology. We are going to work on the technology whichever the application team has designed it. So which means we are going to work in various technologies or various cloud tools, and it is all still evolving, still dynamic in nature. Things are changing. So first thing, at least try to understand one from the approach perspective, right? One is more from the, okay, now we are doing testing in data center. Now the application is moving to cloud. What is it required? When it moves to cloud, is it performance is really required at all? Because cloud is ensuring performance and availability. You can machines are going to be spin up automatically on the fly when there is a demand. When there's a CPU spike is there, when a memory is not there, AWS is going to give me one more machine using auto scaling, right? Is it so? Which means really performance is required or not, right? Uh, uh, so those things you should probably try to understand why performance testing is required in cloud. What is auto scaling? What are the additional scenarios you need to cover in the cloud during auto scaling? What happens? How is the performance impact during the auto scaling? So all these things you should. These are all generic in nature, irrespective of AWS or Azure or GCP. Approach the cloud testing scenarios. Your approach towards cloud. You might be having database in data center because of some data privacy. You might be having your application in the cloud. So which means there is going to be a latency between your database and your application. How are you going to test those scenarios in the pre-production environment? So your approach becomes more and more important. You should be able to understand how is your landscape in production, and depending upon that, simulating those scenarios in pre-production, and then testing out this auto cloud or auto cloud scenarios during whenever there is going to be your auto scaling is going to happen. What is the impact of the performance? Whether the new missions are going to come up within 1 minute or 2 minutes, or it is going to take 5 minutes or 10 minutes to get ready. During that time, what is the performance impact? So all these things are in generic things which you should be able to start looking into it when it comes to cloud. And of course, it is good to at least get a basic knowledge on the tools, CloudWatch, the Azure monitoring tools, Azure Monitor, the concepts of, at least the concepts of the Docker, Kubernetes, and very importantly, from performance testing perspective, right, the load generation now is going to become more and more easy. Earlier, we used to get 10 load generators, 5 load generators, and we want to fight with other teams for load generators. Now with the cloud, if in your organization people are using cloud, then you can go and just get your missions on the fly. You don't need to really estimate before the project and ask for 5 missions or 10 missions, right? You can pretty much easily go and get missions on the fly. Whenever you require to run a test, you can go and spin up the AWS EC2 missions or Azure missions, and then use it for your load testing for that particular period alone. So your load generation strategy might will become easier with all these cloud technologies in place. So which means from a cloud perspective, there is no need to go and master it. But if you're already in a project, start understanding how the teams are using these different ways of deployment model of Kubernetes or the cloud watches, your Azure monitor, and then you start learning it. And then if at all you're not in cloud yet, you can probably, there might be n number of courses available, or probably you can just Google it. You will be getting all these information about CloudWatch. You can just go and subscribe for AWS yourself, right? They're giving some free subscription where you can just try to learn all these concepts. So if at all you're not working in any cloud project, just start understanding how this cloud performance works. What are these various tools? Understand these basics. What is Docker? Difference between Docker and a VM, and then how this deployment happens in cloud. What is private cloud? What is public cloud? And then what is auto scaling? All these concepts plus the monitoring tools. AppDynamics Dynatrace is still going to be same AppDynamics Dynatrace in cloud or data center. Nothing changes. Okay. But in addition to that, from infra level, these cloud is going to provide you CloudWatch and Azure monitoring tools. So if you're not exposed so far for the cloud application projects, you can just look into these aspects alone, and then be ready for whenever there is a new project coming in. These should not be a Greek or Latin, right? You might be already knowing about private cloud or public cloud, auto cloud provisioning, and then your CloudWatch, and then EC2 missions. So all these terminologies and the concepts and the way it is going to work, it should be, at least you should have a theoretical knowledge about all these things, rather than saying you don't know anything about at all. You can upskill yourself in these basic technologies. If you're already working in a cloud project, then explore a bit. Just don't do a black box. Somebody is giving you the application URL, you're going to do a scripting, I'm doing execution, I'm giving a report. You don't even worry about whether it is cloud or not. See, end of the day, yes, of course, you can do a black box testing, right? It is a cloud or data center, you don't need to really worry about it. For you, you need a URL, you do a scripting, you do execution, you do a provide a report. That can be still done, but there is no meaning in doing a complete black box, right? If it's a cloud, understand what is a cloud, where it is hosted, what is the deployment diagram, what does the environmental looks like, where is your database, where is your application, what kind of auto scaling they have set. So how am I going to replicate that in my pre-production? My pre-production environment, is it there in cloud or data center? Where is my database? What kind of auto scaling scenarios I'm going to bring in? What kind of end user experience measurement I'm going to do? So you think about these angle from a cloud perspective, then you will start learning these things one by one automatically. Okay. So cloud and DevOps, of course, it's going to be very key, irrespective of what role you wanted to get into it. So two things, there are two complete different things. One, from a role perspective, your SREs, SDET, full stack tester, or a performance engineer. There is more towards a role, more from a job aspiration, what is expected in the market. Second is DevOps and cloud is something more from the technology perspective. Irrespective of what you want to be, these things are going to be something will be there in your project, if not today, very shortly. Okay. So I mean, idea is, I mean, not only for this year or next year, right? It's always the same thing. Always strengthen your basics, because as I said, test performance scripting, somebody can easily come and do it. A manual tester can come and do it. Looking into AppDynamics Dynatrace, anyone can do it for sure, right? We all know that how easy AppDynamics or Dynatrace is. You open it, you look into a home page, the Dynatrace or AppDynamics itself will tell you what are the problems. So that is something, not it's going to be very niche, but still, if you wanted to go and troubleshoot problem, correlate the problems, you would still need the engineering mindset. So which means you have to, if you wanted to be a niche, you have to strengthen your basics. Of course, engineering is going to be very important in that aspect. Niche skill set which somebody else cannot easily gain. That is something you can start strengthening your basics, and then you can expand the knowledge in other areas. Other areas could be cloud, DevOps, your SDET or SREs, or full stack testing. That is something you can slowly expand it. But before expanding it, strengthen your knowledge, strengthen your basics, and then expand. If that is something you're doing it time and time, I think your core is going to be always maintained to the expected level at the market. So I'll just take a pause. There are a couple of questions that are coming in. I'm just looking into this. SRE is same as APM, not exactly, but APM is something is going to be enabler for that, right? For synthetic monitoring, yes, there are components within APM. You have a synthetic monitoring, but synthetic monitoring tool is just about it is going to do what you want to say. But before that, you just need to understand what are the critical transactions that needs to be monitored. You need to create scripts, configure it, creating alerts, creating thresholds. All is going to be part of an SRE role. Who will get paid more if you consider these 4 roles as per your experience? Who will get paid more? It all depends from a salary perspective, from a job perspective. I mean, we really couldn't able to figure it out who is going to get more. Full stack tester, yes, it's going to be niche. SDET is going to be niche. SREs are going to be niche. Performance engineering is also going to be niche. I would say equally. You will, I mean, if you are really good in what you claim, if you are really a good SDET, if you're really a full stack tester, if you're really a good performance engineer, I'm sure that I think from a salary perspective, from the I think it should be pretty much equal. Of course, SDET I would maybe a little higher because you have both development and performance knowledge. You might get more salary, but I would say otherwise it's all equal. Can you suggest any course for SRE? There is no specific tailored course for SRE. We have multiple courses within Asia itself targeting these aspects like end user experience, synthetic monitoring, and all. But there's no one single course for SRE can cover all these things. So we have a separate performance engineering course, very in-depth course, tailored course for engineering. We also have a course for end user experience, synthetic monitoring, which will cover a little bit of SREs. But yeah, that is what we have it today. If you want to strengthen the basics of performance testing engineering, 2 things are different. Performance testing is different, engineering is different. Depending upon what is your current skill set, what is your current experience. Of course, Isha has multiple courses. Engineering, as I said, it covers from a basics to intermediate, completely engineering, covering from your memory leak analysis or CPU profiling, client-side profiling, heap dump, thread dump, AWR analysis, monitoring strategy. All these things will be covered from an engineering perspective. From a performance testing basics perspective, as I said, depending upon what you are currently, there are multiple other courses available for performance testing also. What is the use of SDET in PT? It is not about SDET in a PT. It is more of a role, right? You can be a tester today if you wanted to. Probably you have a passion towards development. Since you are already good in testing, if you are already good in performance testing, right? If you have a development knowledge, you can slowly work along with the developers, okay, and then you can do a white box kind of a testing. You can look into code and provide suggestion at the code level for performance improvement, for fixing the security issues at the code level. And then once you start looking into the code level, you get comfortable at the project, at the entire code base. Then you can probably start looking into the working towards the enhancement, and you become a SDET, right? In fact, the definition of SDET is a software developer engineer can also do a testing. But we are now looking from this angle. We as a performance tester, is it possible to become a SDET? It's not going to be that easy, as I said in the beginning. But if you have passion towards it, if you get an opportunity, it is going to be other way around. Are you covering in depth all these?
Satish, can you hear me? Hey, one
Yeah.
question regarding this cloud performance project. So I did not work on complete end-to-end maybe cloud performance thing. So, but auto scaling for sure they will implement for the load generators or for the app servers or DB servers, right? So whenever a node goes down in the when during the load testing or anything, so it will take some time for another node to come up online and attach it to the group, correct? So in the meantime, if load balancer sends request to that unhealthy node, it is going to get failed, correct? So what is there a best way to actually report how to minimize that, or is there a way to completely remove that from the
See, that is a kind of a scenario you may have to replicate in your performance testing as well. That is where your resilience will also come into picture. You bring down your server or probably increase your CPU to 80 or 90 percentage, and some of the machine can come up in 30 seconds or 1 minute because the machine has to turn on, deployment has to be done, server has to be started, it has to be added to the load balancing, and all these things has to happen sequentially, right? So during that time, if your application is degrading very fastly, other CPU, other machine CPU memory is going to increase very drastically, you might see failures. Or if your load balancing is started sending the request to the new machine before even it is ready, it is going to throw out errors. So all these things is what you need to foresee and then create those scenarios in the pre-prod, and you need to test it out. Accordingly,
but
you might need to set your threshold.
yeah
Normally, we
some
go and set a threshold.
Okay, to some extent, we it is expected, right? The errors. I mean, until the node comes up, so it is expected until I mean, at least for 30 seconds or some period, our load test can get errors in that period, right? They or else is there
No,
any
no,
any option
not
of
ideally, right?
actually? uh,
Not ideally. We can minimize the errors, right? Say if CPU is 80% today, and you set the threshold as 80%, okay, and then from 80 to say at 80%, your AWS is going to start bringing a new mission, and it might take 2 minutes or 3 minutes. Within the two to 3 minutes, the existing server might go from 80 to 95
I mean,
percentage,
yeah,
and
I
it might
understand. So
start.
CPU can be only one factor. So we don't know because of some or the other factors. Or I mean, maybe some or the other reason we cannot anticipate before. So
You
is there
have to
any other
anticipate.
way of actually? Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking like, is this? Do we have this kind of way? Like, we already have some kind of mission already available with all the available softwares, everything installed in it, and only when our load generator or something comes down, immediately we attach the this thing to that. I mean, is there a way something like this or no? I mean, initially the new node will not be part of the load balancer group. Only when there is any
Correct.
error, immediately within 1 or 2 seconds, we'll just attach it rather than spinning the new
No,
mission altogether.
it is not 1 or 2 seconds. It cannot be 1 or 2 seconds, right? Ideally, it all depends upon what you want to do it. Ideally, the new missions will be created on the fly, and then the new AMI will be um, deployed,
What
and
you
then
say,
everything will get
rather than giving AWS or the cloud provider to take the time, instead of let's say our target is 5 missions. So before starting the load test itself, we'll have our 7 missions ready. Okay, with all the softwares and everything. So 5 missions. So if one node goes down, immediately another node will get an attached to it rather than taking is there a practice something like this? Like I mean, anyone following or is this possible?
see. It is possible, right? You can minimize as much as possible. As you said, obviously you cannot have 20 missions up and running so that you don't have an error at all, right? It is between cost and your efficiency. So to reduce the cost only, we go to cloud, and cloud is going to provide you the on-demand mission on the fly. And as you said, we can have the other 3 missions, 4 missions ready with the deployment. Just turn it off, and then whenever there is going to be a demand, you go and turn it on, which means it is not going to take much time. So that approach, that strategy, it's all it is up to you, because even if you're going to get a mission and not using it, right, you're going to still get charged. So it depends upon how do you want to do it, how fast your application is going to get deployed, how many errors you can actually live with it, 1% error or 2% error, response time, maybe if we can go from 5 seconds to 8 seconds during that interval, if that is something allowed for this application, if it's not a very critical application, depending upon, you can take the call on how do you are going to handle this auto scaling. But very important thing is you should be able to anticipate these problems and then create such scenarios in pre-prod, and then address those issues before it goes to production.
Yeah, got it. Thanks, Satish.
Satish, I have one question here.
Yeah, please.
Generally, we will not do the performance testing in production, right? So going forward, the industry will look like for performance testing in production as well.
Already we have seen a couple of places where people do the performance testing in production, for whatever reasons, right? Ideally, we recommend not to do it. But there is no such trend we are seeing for sure. But here and there, even 5 years before, we have seen that kind of a testing happens in production. People don't invest in pre-prod, just have everything in production, and they just roll out this to 5 users or 10 users, kind of beta users, and they do this testing in production in the night times. Yeah, it's not a trend we are seeing for sure, but it happens depending upon the customer to customer. It happens here and there. But of course, it's not something a trend we are seeing. But now with the cloud itself, right? I mean, getting environment is going to be very, very easy. You don't need to wait for production. You can just mimic the environment similar to production, and you can just run it and then terminate it. So, which means with the cloud being now being used everywhere, getting an environment is more easy compared to earlier, where we have to go and procure everything before. So
Yeah.
so it's not something we are seeing it for sure.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm just looking into the messages to see if there are any questions. The document for cloud, I don't have it with me, but I'll check with Isha and see if they have any documents on that. Okay, good. So yeah, so to probably conclude, right? As again, what we wanted to conclude here is strengthen your basics. If you are a performance tester, expand your knowledge in performance testing and definitely engineering for sure, which is going to be a niche. And then you can expand it to the other areas as per your aspiration, as per your current project itself, right? Whichever you see the requirement that might be coming in the future for DevOps or cloud or the other SREs, you can expand to your other areas. And somebody has asked in the message, right? For the SRE, we don't have any SRE course for sure, but we have other courses which will be addressing these end user experience, client side performance, synthetic monitoring. If you want any information, yeah, reach out to us. And for engineering, yes, we have a very tailored engineering course covering the all the required basics to intermediate level. You can reach out to us. Fine. Yeah, this recorded session will be available for sure. Yeah, it will be available, I guess, tomorrow or day after. The team will keep you posted. Okay, guys. Thanks a lot. Being a weekend, taking your time to attend this. If you have any